Hi there, welcome back to my channel and into the video series about community assistance to immigrants. This is part 2, the application part, and where we talk about practicing love, and in particular using the holy trinity of love in my world, which is thinking love, speaking love, and doing love, right? And so if you haven't already, just make sure you grab a glass of water or a cup of tea or coffee. I've got coffee here today with me in order to actually enjoy this part to the maximum. Thinking about love, if we kick off with thinking love, right? What can you do as a community member to think love towards the newcomers? Well, the least you can do, my friends, is to pray for them or to think well for them, right? So if you, even for a moment, as I'm filming this video, as you are watching this video, whenever it might be, there's a variety of individuals that are immigrating. They might actually be on the vessel, either the airplane or a ship or whichever way and method they're coming into your country to relocate themselves. Think well for them, wish them well, pray for them. Say things in your mind, hope your travels are fine. Hope your journey can be as stress-free as it can be. Wishing your family well. Wishing your smooth transition. Hope everything goes well. Hope my neighborhood, hope my city, my country welcomes you with open arms and you resettle yourself well into my community and you enjoy it to the maximum. And it's, you get everything that you wished for. Right? Those are that's the least you can do. Thinking, praying for them, thinking well of them, sending them beautiful thoughts. Now, in terms of speaking and doing love, because I have a lot more to share on that, I'll just jump straight into those. So in terms of speaking love, right, the principle that may help you come up with your own ideas and then be inspired to say say great things towards newcomers and the principle there is put yourself in their shoes, right? Contextualize the situation a little bit more for yourself. You may have been an immigrant yourself, so you may reflect back on the experience that you had. And what would you have wanted to hear at that point in time? If you're not an immigrant, try to imagine what would that feel like if you just found yourself in a new space, new community, new geographic location. What would you want to hear? And some of the things, is just even hearing a lovely, encouraging, supporting welcome from somebody in the community can mean the world of difference to somebody. It can be very meaningful. So stop and say welcome. If people who have just arrived into your area. Start a conversation with them. Be proactive in initiating a conversation. There's a variety of topics you can discuss with the newcomers into your space, into your area of residence. Starting with, their home country. Where did they come from? What city, what country? Is it their place of birth? Or were they an immigrant in that area themselves for a certain period of time? If so, how long? What made them move? Ask them the question. What is it about the place that they have just come, your place, i.e. your community, that has attracted them to that area? What is it? What was the goal? What was the inspiration? What was the inspiration? Ask them questions about their culture back home. What is it like back home? Have you been there yourself? Maybe you can share some memories, some positive memories, hopefully, or not. So be honest and truthful, and have a discussion about the cultural differences, perhaps the culture back home. If you have any ideas as to what it might be, or something that the immigrant may have shared with you, and share some, customs and traditions of your own local community of your country. Something that, unites us humans is foods, right? Meals. Everyone's got to eat. Have a discussion about local foods. What is it that really makes your community stand out, your country stand out? some well-known dishes as well as some perhaps less known dishes, and where to get your hands on them. Are there any local cafes, restaurants, or food places that may serve those local dishes and you may want to suggest to those immigrants? Likewise, are there any other local places that the immigrant may be guided to visit in order to immerse themselves into your culture of your local neighborhood or your space, your city, whatever it might be, your village? Are there any local festivals that are coming up? Do you have a traditional market, for instance, like a weekly market or a monthly market that the immigrant may wish to visit? Think about selling veggies, fruits, foods to try, drinks. Do you do any campfires around your space where the community can gather, sing some songs, dance, some fun activities? Another one that people don't think about, but actually public holidays. Are there any public holidays that are coming up that the immigrant might need to be aware of? It's not something you really Google or search for, but there might be some local public holidays that they should be aware of. And what kinds of things does your community do during those public holidays? Are there any concerts? Is there anything traditional that you eat on that particular public holiday, or do? Do you go away? If so, where? What are some common places? So moving away from customs and traditions, you may want to delve into a conversation as to the immigrants' experience to date with their neighborhood, with the local community, right? And, be specific. Talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Be that ear. You're listening, show them that you're listening to what they have to say. They may not have had the ability to actually talk to somebody frankly and truthfully as to their experience. So be that ear of comfort, Be that shoulder to cry on if you see somebody is actually, quite in an emotional state and they really need to release that energy to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and especially the ugly if there are any struggles or, difficult situations, challenging experiences that they may have had. Something that comes to mind actually popped into my mind. We had a friend, family friend a long time ago who just immigrated into a country, I'm not going to say which one, and they were mugged. They were robbed on the spot. They were just visiting some local sites, kind of like a tourist, but they immigrated. They were going to move and reside and start a new life in that place. And within the first couple of days, they got mugged. Their passports, money got stolen, things like that. That's a horrific experience for somebody to go through, especially when you took such a big leap of faith. These things do happen. And if you ask the right questions and listen to the people and offer some help and advice, it could be a huge boost to their energy, their spirit, and ultimate assistance, that moral support. Have a think about anything else that you might be able to help them with. Any kind of specific support and guidance about a variety of things about your community, about your country that they may need guidance with. And the key in what I've just said is be specific about it. So try to avoid general questions like, how can I help? Or what do you need help with? Or do you need help? Because people may instinctively say, no, thank you, we're fine, we're good, to try and put on a brave face, to try and actually avoid being a burden on somebody else, right? Trying to be polite, just say, no thanks, everything is okay. But if you ask a specific question, then a person might be willing, the immigrant might be willing to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly by being responsive to the specific query that you're asking them about. as opposed to being, just a general question, how can I help? So some specific examples of assistance that you can offer or ask or request if they need advice in a particular subject matter, particular topic. All goes back to, if you were in their shoes, what would you want to know? And so examples include, food, groceries, shopping for your food items. Do they have enough to eat? Have they figured out a place where they can get some local groceries? Do you have any tips to share with them as to, just buying food? As I mentioned before, is there a market that they could go to and get some more affordable goodies to make sure that they eat? Childcare. For those, if you're talking to an immigrant that's part of a family, right, and there are kids involved, are they okay with childcare? Have kids found a place where they can go and learn? Have they considered any options already? Do they know places that they can go to discuss, have those conversations about the kids and kids' education? Or are there any other issues relating to kids and children that, the adults, the parents might be struggling with? Other topic is vehicles and general transportation, right? The ability to actually drive. Don't forget, immigrants may have come from a completely different place where even they might be driving on the other side of the road, right? So little things like that might be a little challenge or a struggle to get accustomed with. The general public, transportation system, be that, buses or ferries or metro, there are so many variety of public transport options that the immigrant may simply not be familiar with. They may not have had that back home. So any kind of tips and advice as to how you go about purchasing a ticket, can you buy it on the bus as an example, or do you actually have to go and get your tickets in advance of you entering the public transport, the bus, the ferry, or whatever it might be? Can you buy things online? Do you have special cards that you tag on and tag off? How does the whole system work, People may have never used Metro before, and Metro is a thing at your place. Talk them through. It may sound simple, but some of those things can be really challenging for some if you haven't had the experience, if you've never had a chance to actually do that in your life before. Healthcare system, right? How do you go about getting medical assistance and help in your place? Do you have public health care? Do you go straight to the hospital? Or do you go have like a family doctor, a general practitioner that you have to visit first before you go and, go to a specialist or an expert or hospital? How does that whole situation work? Do you have to register, or is there a public, more general healthcare system that applies? So you get like a unique identifier code, and that means you can go anywhere. How common is medical insurance? Do you have any suggestions? Somebody that an immigrant should sign up with immediately in order to make sure that they have medical insurance for any issues that may arise. Education system. We briefly touched upon, kids and having a place to go for their learning and development. But just more widely, how does the education system work? Because the immigrant, the adult, may be wishing to further their study, go on courses or training or complete tertiary education, universities and sorts of things, places like that, in order to get further training and education. How does that system work? Is there private options, public options? Are there any places of school in your local neighborhood, or does one have to travel? Is that travel far? The thing to talk about is actually language as well, right? So if the immigrant is from a place where your language is not their first language, how proficient are they? Do they need any help with reading or writing, listening skills, comprehension? Are you able to offer that assistance to them? Or do you know of some schools or workshops or classes that they can go attend in order to upskill in terms of their language skills. Language is so crucial and important, for humans to be able to communicate. That might be something that you can assist them with, perhaps. Do they need translation services for any, especially if there are any legal issues, legal documents that people need to fill in, complete, even to open like a bank accounts or banking and financial services, right? There people might having difficulties in terms of being able to even complete a simple form if they're experiencing language troubles, challenges. Local rules and regulations, right? So every single person and every jurisdiction has their own national laws or local laws, regulations, and there might be some that the immigrants may simply not be aware of. If it's something so unique to the place where you are living, share that with them. Have a consideration as to, like, is there any place where they can get some, free advice or affordable advice as to local regulations, citizens bureau, things like that, where you can go and actually chat to somebody who may be able to guide you or be that starting point to give you that information as to some local things that they should be aware of. Employment and workplace, that's the next thing I had on my list. People, if they have arrived without scoring a job just yet, where can they get help? How can they find a job? How do you go about doing that process? In some countries, there is a certain process you have to follow. For instance, you apply online or you apply directly with the employer. You may have to submit a curriculum vitae or a resume. Well, some nations, countries, don't request that. The immigrant may have never had the experience of preparing a CV or a resume for them. Is that something you can assist with? Or do you know of somebody who might be able to help them? Is there a template you can find for them? Even like the interview process could be a completely, innovative new thing for them. Is there any tips and advice you can give them as to training for interviews, for jobs, to make sure they get a job? Talk through the employment process and the rules and local customs and regulations that apply, paying taxes as an example. How does that whole world work if you're employed? Or if you're just doing some job or business on the side, how does the tax work? And then ultimately, we touched upon the banking services, right? Everyone will need some kind of, bank account in order to transact. People are moving away, or countries are moving away from cash and fiat currency into, digital currency. So for that, you need a bank account set up. So there's banking issues, but likewise, there could be financial issues and hardships that the immigrants could be experiencing. You never know how one's journey has been. The experience may have not been great. Like I give an example, some people get mugged and money stolen and things like that. So all of a sudden they may find themselves in a very troublesome situation. Where can they go to for help? Is there a welfare system in your country that perhaps they may need to turn to the government for some assistance, some temporary relief? Who should they be contacting? Now I'm just going to pause right there before we jump into the doing love part of the Holy Trinity of practicing love. So I'll see you shortly, just in a moment. Welcome to the next part of this Holy Trinity of love that we're discussing. When we're all about the doing love now, right? So as a community member, what can I do? What action can I take in order to help an immigrant that's just arrived or has been here for just a few weeks or a few months? What can I do to help them? And so we've touched upon, the speaking love. So starting a conversation and being proactive about asking a specific topic, specific subject that the immigrant may want to share some, the experience with you, be that, language difficulties, education, healthcare, employment, financial issues, all things like that. And so then now it was like, well, what can you undo? What can you do to actually help and benefit somebody? And just remember, giving specific guidance or advice, information, is already a huge, huge, huge help. Now, it's information that the immigrant may not have otherwise known or been aware of, right? So just remember, there is power in information and knowledge. So the fact that you are proactively starting a specific conversation or discussion about a particular topic would be already a huge boost to them, okay? So, just don't undermine the power of simply speaking to an immigrant about something. Now, the principle we're discussing was about putting yourself in the shoes of an immigrant, right? Well, what can one do? And that in itself may, if you think about that may give you some personal suggestions and inspiration as to what you might be able to do to help the immigrant. Comment down below whatever comes to your mind, because I'm sure those tips and advice will really help others on their journey as to what one can do to help the immigrants. But something that I'm a big proponent of is when offering to help somebody, you do not need to go out of your way completely to a point that you might even break your own back. Find what your natural strengths are and see if whatever your offer of help is aligns with those strengths, right? Whatever it is that you're good at. So examples including, if you're a good cook or your partner, your family member is a good cook, can you prepare literally a meal for the immigrants? Some local food that they may have never tried before. Can you make that? Can you prepare a plate of food for them? As simple as that, and you can share it, especially if they're your neighbor, somebody you can see on a regular basis. Other thing is, do you drive? Are you a competent driver? Are you able to offer some driving lessons to the immigrant? Is that something you can do? If you can't commit to many, just a couple would do, even just to give them a test run, a practice run. Can you offer their vehicle if they don't have a vehicle at hand, in order for them to actually drive themselves to a particular place, be that a supermarket as an example? And can you teach them your language? Are you able to have a conversation with them, just to allow them to practice their skills in the language? What about, reading or writing? Are you able to translate something? So help with the translation, like we discussed, any kind of application forms, banking documents, or there's so many forms that you might need to complete, so many documents out there, right? Is there a translation aspect that you could guide them with? I'm sure that would be tremendous help. Take them to a specific place they might need to go. So if an immigrant is not a competent driver themselves, one part of the one solution is to obviously catch public transport, and you might be able to guide them and walk them through the process, and how to get from literally location A to location B. Remember, this is a person who might not be aware of their surroundings or the environment. They have no idea as to how long something might take. They are not aware of the map, it's not something they're familiar with. So, one way is to walk through the whole public transport system situation. But the other, solution is, can you spend some of your time and effort to actually take them to a particular place, wherever that might be that they need to go? Can you introduce them to that place? That would be helpful. Advocacy efforts. I have something in the advocacy effort on my list. So, is there something that you can assist them and advocate on their behalf, right? If an immigrant is going through a particular struggle or challenge or difficulty, be that with their system of education, healthcare, banking, transportation, employment, local rules and regulations, whatever it might be, right? Can you advocate on their behalf? Can you go and to another person, obviously with the immigrant or their family, whoever it might be, and can you be there as a support person? Can you act as a bit of a mediator, translator, mediator, facilitator? I'm sure that would be a huge amount of support. And there's something I might want to mention about my personal experience and I'm gonna really link down below a group that I've been very involved in, which is called Mahi for Ukraine. Is because for the last year and a half plus now, I've been advocating and working with other very talented individuals on advocating on behalf of the Ukrainian people, given the war that has broken out there in February 2022. So because of my Ukrainian ethnicity, I considered where my strengths are, and I've obviously got an emotional connection because my family is still there, and we were advocating on behalf of the Ukrainian people, especially in the immigration space. That's kind of where I was drawn to assist in order to help them come to New Zealand, to make sure that New Zealand opens its borders and welcomes the Ukrainian whole cohort. And now we're working through some settlement issues, assimilation challenges that the Ukrainian people have found themselves. So, one way you can show support, if you don't mind, is, click down on the link below, like us on Facebook, comment down below anything you can, because that would be a huge, tremendous help for the Ukrainian people. So here's just some practical example, advocacy effort on behalf of a certain cohort of people in your community. So the next one is make introductions to certain group of people, right? And we are social creatures, right? Humans like to talk. So in one way is to actually be given the opportunity to go ahead and meet, shake hands or wave hello, make connections so that people can actually start finding their own tribe, start finding their own community. And they might even find people from back home or other people who speak their language, right? Their first language, so they're actually able to communicate in their local language, which helps a lot, honestly, being able to talk in your first language. Is there a barbecue that you can throw? Is it like a dinner or a lunch on the weekend, a family-friendly event that you can quickly throw together, invite your family and friends, neighbors, etc., and obviously invite the immigrants in, just to see if they can start assimilating to your local community, to start helping making those introductions. If they have kids, there might be kids that might start playing together and become friends, right? There's an opportunity there. And the last few things I have on my list is, can you share certain community groups or other important websites or where the immigrant can get information as to the local community, be that Facebook groups that they may wish to join, or is there certain, government groups that that the immigrant can familiarize themselves with in order to obtain more information. And it's just a matter of you just showing things on your phone, internet connection, on your laptop computer, things like that. That might be of help. Now, local festivals, cultural places, if people just want to go, just let some steam off and go visit a local museum or theatre, or, is there a concert coming up or some other artsy place, where is that? Are you able to give them some guidance as to where that might be? That would be helpful. And last but not least on my list is, are you able to give some guidance to the immigrants as to some local places where people simply hang out, right? Or their community might hang out. So examples be community halls, parks, other public places, churches, temples, if the people are religious or spiritual, find what that is. Is there a local place nearby where they can find that sense of belonging, with a particular community that they're familiar with and they have relevance to that from back home? Playgrounds, are there any local playgrounds that kids can go and hang out at? Anything else that might come to your mind that is very unique and familiar to you in your local place, in your neighborhood? Cafes, bars, restaurants, food places come to mind. People love to eat food, so where do people eat and hang out at your place? Give them a suggestion. So with that in mind, I'm going to wrap up part 2 because I've talked for a very long time, but hopefully it's inspired you to be able to go and practice love towards newcomers and immigrants, and I have given you some suggestions as to how you might be able to do that. in order to make sure that the immigrants feel as welcome as they can in your community. And with that in mind, I'm going to wrap up part 2, and I will jump into part 3, which is all about the wrap up. Please feel free to click on the link down below for part 3, and I will see you shortly. Bye for now.